In this second tutorial, we will be able to calculate factorials. So let's turn over to this page in our notes, and this is a pretty exciting part of our lesson. Yeah, there's so many exclamation points. So the exclamation point actually is an operation in math. N factorial. This is not n, 5. You're not excited about it, though you might be. This is called n factorial. And what we do is we multiply a bunch of numbers together. We take n and we multiply it to all the numbers less than n on the way down to 1. So n factorial is n times n minus 1 times n minus 2 times n minus 3. All of these numbers multiplied all the way down to 3 times 2 times 1. Don't go to 0 because then, of course, it would be equal to 0. We stop at 1. So all the consecutive numbers multiplied together is what a factorial is. Now, by definition, I have to define a few. Well, a couple, I guess. By definition, 0 factorial is the same thing as 1 factorial, which is equal to 1. Mathematicians had to define 0 factorial to be equal to something other than 0 because in our formulas, a lot of times 0 factorial will be in the denominator. So we had to just arbitrarily say, you know what, we're going to make that equal to 1. So if we wanted to evaluate these, 5 factorial would be equal to 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. That's basically it. We just have to multiply all those numbers together, and of course we get 120. That's how you can calculate a factorial. Now, if you wanted to do this on your calculator, I'll give you the where this is. If you go and push the math button on your calculator, and you go over to the probability menu, perb, I believe it's number 4 is your factorial exclamation point. If you pull up your calculator and you push the math button and you go over to the probability, number 4 is your factorial. So you actually have to push the 5 first and then go call up the math probability and then down to 4. Oops, I went too far. And then down to 4. And you'll get 5 factorial is indeed 120. So if you wanted to use your calculator for these, that would be fine too. 8 factorial divided by 2 factorial times 6 factorial. If you wanted this in the calculator, that's okay, as long as you tell the denominator or the calculator that the denominator is that whole thing. This is not very difficult to do by hand. 8 factorial is the same thing as 8 times 7 times 6, and 6 factorial is really all that I need, because that's the rest of it. 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 2 factorial, of course, is just 2 times 1. And 6 factorial, well, I can ultimately cancel those out because they're common factors. So I don't really need to go that far. 8 times 7 is 56. 2 times 1, of course, is 2. So this is all equal to 28. Go ahead and confirm that on your calculator if you wish, but that's not too difficult to do by hand. Because I don't want you always relying on your calculator, I might do something with variables like this, x factorial divided by x minus 1 factorial. Well, as long as you know what a factorial is, x factorial in this numerator is the same thing as x times x minus 1 times x minus 2 times x minus 3, dot, 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 forever. The denominator is x minus 1 times x minus 2 times x minus 3, dot, 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 on forever. And hopefully you see that all of these factors actually will cancel away forever, leaving the only thing left in the numerator as x. So we can understand factorials and do it that way. Now I will ask you to pause and see how far your calculator can go. What is the highest factorial that this calculator can calculate? Pause now and see if you can figure that out. How fast can you get it? So if you go too far with your calculator, you get an overflow, meaning that the calculator cannot calculate that much. But the highest that this calculator can calculate is 69 factorial. When you plug in 70 factorial, you go too high, the calculator cannot do it. So that means that if I gave you a new problem, 97 factorial, divided by 92 factorial, the calculator actually would not be able to calculate this, at least how it looks right now. But that does not mean that this is an unfair problem. You know factorials. 97 times 96 times 95 times 94 times 93 times the rest of the way 92 factorial. I don't need to continue writing all of those because the denominator is 92 factorial. And since these are factors, I can cancel them away. And then I just have this to do. And the calculator will be able to calculate that. Plug that into the calculator and you get this very small number. I'm kidding. 7,733,522,880. So the calculator would be overflowed if you type this into the calculator. It won't be able to do that, but if you expand out your factorials and cancel them, then it will be able to do that. So that's a fair question. Thanks for watching this on the factorials, and I'll see you in the last installment next. See ya.